May 1967 was a great month for singles, and several of those singles became classics from the 60s. Without further ado, let's revisit some 45s released that month.
Skip the light fandango, turn cartwheels across the floor.
May 1967 saw the release of one of the most successful singles in history, having sold more than 10 million copies worldwide. A Whiter Shade of Pale by Procol Harum is the most played record by British broadcasting over the last 70 years. This was the group's debut single, and even though many reviewers pointed out that the song had a very good chance of becoming a big hit, nobody could have predicted that the debut single from a virtually unknown band would reach such massive heights of popularity. Disc magazine journalist Penny Valentine wrote,
"I'm split completely in half by this record. On one side, it has the most beautiful production and arrangement I've heard in a long time, thanks to Denny Cordell. It's got a Bach fugue-like organ, and the lead singer coming in with love in his voice and into the lyrics, like Stevie Winwood without the viciousness. But on the other hand, the lyrics are what split me. They are very staggering, but they sound as though they belong to another song. At the beginning, I was lulled into thinking that we were in for some really beautiful words. In fact, clever as they are enormously hip. I love the record, and I'm sure it will be a hit. But identification is hard for the less hip like me."
The single reached number 1 in the UK and stayed there for 6 weeks. In the States, without much promotion, it reached number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100. And the single also reached number 1 in more than 20 countries.
As long as I gaze on Waterloo Sunset, I am in paradise.
May 1967 also saw the release of one of the greatest British songs of the 60s. Waterloo Sunset by the Kinks is a pop masterpiece, and one of the finest compositions by Ray Davies. The single got excellent reviews in the press. The Melody Maker wrote,
"The Kinks have taken a well-deserved and obviously reflective breather from the recording scene. But here they blossom again with that evergreen Kinks sound, noticeably matured, and becoming more subtle and less aggressive. This is another colorful Ray Davies composition, swaying along with all the hooks and hallmarks of a top 10 disc."
Penny Valentine wrote,
"This is quite simply a beautiful record. It may seem odd to use a word like beautiful of a song about standing on Waterloo Bridge and noticing things. But this is so very, very good. Quite the best the Kinks have done. And if it doesn't reach number 1, I shall not be surprised but astonished. I have waxed poetical about Ray Davies' talents before, but he really is an extraordinary talent. A tremendously vulnerable record with a lovely chorus and delightful backing. To be sung and sung and sung. Hooray!"
Pete Townshend was asked to give his verdict on the song. Townshend said, "Waterloo Sunset is fantastic. It's the first Kinks record that is a real Ray Davies production, and it's great. I hope he doesn't leave them." The single reached number 2 on the British charts, and it was a top 10 hit in Australia, New Zealand, and most of Europe. It was also released in North America, but it failed to chart there. Even though Purple Haze was still in the charts in May 1967, Jimi Hendrix decided to release a new single. The Melody Maker reported,
Jimi Hendrix, up to 7 this week with Purple Haze and now recovered from the foot injury caused by a broken Fuzzbox foot control at Chesterfield last weekend, has hit back at critics who claim he can only make rave-up records. He has specially recorded a slow number for his next single release, a song called The Wind Cries Mary, due out at the end of May. Agent Dick Katz said, "This is a beautiful number and features some fine guitar by Jimi. He made it to prove that he's not just a raver on record as some people have suggested. I predict it will be a tremendous hit."
The single got excellent reviews in the press. The Melody Maker wrote,
"Slowly but oh so positively, the Hendrix experience begin to find themselves and discover the best musical medium. This brand new single is their finest sound to date, displaying Hendrix in his true flying colors, a lyrical poet combining the deepest feelings with an overpowering all-enveloping atmosphere and presence. If music plays an important part in your life, buy this record. Maximum points to all concerned."
The single, which was backed by Highway Child, was released in the UK in May 1967 and reached number 6 on the UK singles chart. In the United States, The song was first released as the B-side of the Purple Haze single in June 1967. Paper Sun was Traffic's debut single, released 2 months after Stevie Winwood unexpectedly decided to leave the Spencer Davis Group after a string of very successful 45s. The song was recorded at Olympic Studios in London and produced by Jimmy Miller. Disc magazine asked Winwood about the song. Winwood said, "Paper Sun is just the first thing we have done during our 2 months away. We are progressing all the time and perhaps, in another 2 months, we shall have developed a completely different sound. By keeping out of the way and spending all our time concentrating on the music, we are avoiding the inevitable 6 months on the road that most groups have to endure before making a record." The single got very positive reviews in the press. The Melody Maker wrote,
This record presents a problem. It marks Stevie Winwood's return to the recording scene. It's a 4-minute-plus record. It's released on a relatively small label. And it's a reasonably far-out sound. But nevertheless, all these hang-ups are eliminated by the truth. This is a great record. On first hearing, you won't like it because of all the preconceptions of what you think Stevie's new group should sound and be like. But look into the record and judge it for what it is, a sunshine super sound. Congratulations to Jimmy Miller on an excellent production job, and congratulations to Stevie for sorting it all out. A heavenly record. Give it a chance and then just float on its beauty.
The single reached number 5 in the UK and number 4 in Canada. In the States, it peaked at number 70 according to Billboard. Many British psychedelic singles released in 1967 were commercial failures when they were originally released, but became cult classics over the years. My White Bicycle by Tomorrow is one of those singles. The song was recorded at Abbey Road at the same time that the Beatles were recording Sgt. Pepper's. And even though it was a flop when it was originally released in May 1967, it's now considered to be one of the best and most iconic psychedelic singles of 1967. The song, with its backward double-tracked phased guitar, courtesy of future Yes member Steve Howe, was truly new and groundbreaking. The band regularly played at the UFO Club along with groups such as Pink Floyd and Soft Machine, and they were hailed by the press as the next big thing. The Melody Maker wrote,
This is one of the most exciting and commercial and catchy records to have come out of the new school of pop music since the word psychedelia first made its presence known in our multicolored pleasant country. Tomorrow, 4 relaxed Londoners attack the auditory senses with a backward-spinning cymbal-smashing guitar-chanting ditty about a carefree youth cycling the streets Provo style. The number whips along with a whispering charm and an urgent climacteric atmosphere. A group that certainly doesn't lig about and should be in line for some success with this new sound.
Despite the good reviews and positive comments from the press, the single failed to chart. However, later in 1975, the song reached number 14 in the UK when it was covered by Scottish band Nazareth.
Hey, Carrie Anne, what's your game now? Can anybody play?
After the success of On a Carousel in February 1967, the Hollies released a brand new single in May. Carrie Anne was another excellent song penned by the Hollies with a fantastic catchy melody. Derek Johnson from the New Musical Express wrote,
I always look forward to reviewing the Hollies discs, because they're invariably worth hearing. And this is no exception. Here we have a vigorous and thoroughly stimulating bounce beat, emphasized by hand claps, plus a very tuneful melody that I've been whistling since I first heard it. The partly nostalgic lyric is attractively harmonized. And it all adds up to a wonderfully commercial sound. There's also a slight Latin influence in the rhythm, highlighted by a steel drum solo. It maintains the boys' high standard.
The single reached number 3 on the British charts. And it was also a hit in the States and Canada, peaking at number 9 on both pop charts.
Lift up your skirt and fly.
Future T-Rex leader Mark Bolan joined John's Children as their lead guitarist in February 1967. And this is the first single he wrote for the band. The chorus of the song featured the signature Bolan singing style that came to define many of those classics by T-Rex. Desdemona is widely considered to be John's Children's finest hour, and it was released just a month after the band played at the 14th Hour Technicolor Dream, the legendary happening that took place at Alexandra Palace in London. Record Mirror wrote,
This is an intuitive tip for the 50, based on a feeling that this is very commercial though also really different. Verse is well sung and the chorus, with answering voice in the background, is both catchy and impacty. Strong guitar in parts, and the beat is just right. Rather a refreshing slice of pop.
In their review of the single, the melody maker pointed out that one of the lines in the song could probably prevent the single from getting plugged.
Lift up your skirt and fly.
And they were certainly right in their prediction. A few days after it was released, the BBC decided to ban the record due to the controversial lyric, which is probably one of the reasons why the single failed to chart in Britain. The song, however, became a minor hit in Europe. May 1967 also saw the release of Night of the Long Grass by the Trogs. Their back-to-basics primitive sound proved to be a great success for the group in 1966. But by 1967, that kind of sound was seen as outdated, so Night of the Long Grass saw the Trogs experimenting with different sounds and lyrical themes. Many people consider this song to be a precursor of Gothic rock, and it definitely features some of the elements that came to define Gothic rock in the 80s. The single got mostly positive reviews in the press. The melody maker wrote,
The Trogs had a comparative failure with their last single, but this should put them straight back up to the top 30. It's another Reg Presley composition aiming for typical Trogs hypnotic effects. But the arrangement is a little more complicated than usual, from the rushing wind at the beginning, to the girl choir gently oohing in the background. Reg sings as threateningly as ever, but the lyric is rather difficult to decipher over the monotonous guitar figure. Must be a hit.
The single peaked at number 19 in Britain. Prior to forming King Crimson, Robert Fripp and Michael Giles were members of this band called The Brain. The band also featured Michael's brother Peter Giles. This is quite possibly the strangest and freakiest British single of 1967. The single was released as a double A-side with the song Kick the Donkey. At the time, the British press didn't even review the single. However, Nightmares in Red has appeared on several compilations over the years. In 1986, it appeared on Bam Carusso's Nightmares in Wonderland compilation. The single obviously went nowhere, and Michael and Peter Giles, along with Robert Fripp, signed to Derham and released an album full of eccentric loneliness called The Cheerful Insanity of Giles and Fripp. The Brain single stands as a testament of an era when major labels took risks and were willing to release weird, unusual and experimental music. I hope you enjoyed this trip back to May 1967. See you next time.